are back with another Black with No Cream podcast. New episode every single Wednesday and Sunday. I'm your host, Ben Haggerty, aka Ben Real Verse World. This is episode 184. Today's guest is photographer Dusty Kessler. Dusty is best known for his work with G-Eazy, Walk the Moon, Miguel, and Mod Sun. Today, Dusty calls us from G-Eazy's house where he's been quarantined for the past 6 weeks, and we discuss how they've been staying creative during this pandemic. We also talk about what it's like creating content for Budweiser at the Superbowl. Dusty has worked the past 2 years for them and shares how he was able to create a dream team that could help him deliver high-end content in a quick amount of time. We discussed this and so much more, but first I wanted to let you know about the other 2 interviews that we dropped today. On episode 182, we have director Tony Yacenda, who gives some crazy behind-the-scenes looks at how he created his hit Netflix series American Vandal and the opportunity to direct 3 episodes on the FX series Dave. And on episode 183, we have producer Andrea Savadera, aka Produced by Dre, who shares some really cool stories behind her latest work on Post Malone's Circles music video, as well as her Travis Barker, Rick Ross, and Lil Wayne's Give Me Brain music video. Make sure to download those episodes on whatever podcast platform you're listening to so you can check those out whenever you want. But if this is your first time tuning in the podcast, you are probably wondering,
what the fuck is Black with No Cream?
Great question. Black with No Cream is the illest educational resource for content creators fueled by caffeine. Or at least I take my coffee black with no cream, but you can drink or not drink whatever caffeine you fuck with and still be a part of our community. We have thousands of members from all around the world working together by sharing content, asking for feedback, passing tips and tricks along to one another with the goal of pushing each other to become the best motherfucking content creators on earth. And you can join our private group if you want to by going to bwnc.com/join. We would love to fucking have you. Please join. We are stoked for you to hear this interview today, but before we get started, I wanted to let you know about our new second channel that we just created on YouTube called the BWNC Podcast Highlights. We upload some of the best, most jam-packed, educational, and entertaining moments from each episode and give them to you packed with B-roll and behind-the-scenes content. And without further ado, I bring to you my episode with Dusty and the most epic podcast intro ever created right motherfucking now. The past podcast guest, Dusty Kessler's in the house. Hey, what's up, fool? How are you?
Hey, we're back, man. I want to see you in person, though. I hate to do it like this, but it's always a pleasure to join you. You're such an incredible host.
Man,
thank you for having me back.
No, I appreciate that. Everyone should obviously listen to the past episode. There's tons of value in that. Right now, quarantine. You've been locked in at G-Eazy's house for like the last 7 weeks.
Yeah, bro, it's been crazy. Like time's flying though, but it's been a really good time to reflect and just take care of your friends. And I'm here with some really good people, and we've been cooking up a bunch and just hanging.
Yeah, I know you said you're working on the cookbook. Like
hopefully,
everyone
man.
needs to follow Dusty on Instagram if you want to just have the craziest food porn you've ever seen. Because this dude is cooking up the entire. Is everyone eating this food? Like you're making everyone food every night.
Man, yeah, I'm the in-home chef over here, man.
It's insane. The food it looks so good, bro. But before we got into this, you were talking about how you kind of find the similarities between cooking similar to like the way you do your photo stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like the more I've been cooking in the quarantine, it's like I find so many similarities between how I take photos or like edit a video project and like putting all those elements and pieces or ingredients together and editing, and so you have the final product that's hopefully good and tastes good and looks good.
It looks fire.
So it's been really fun, even though I haven't been doing like a ton of my regular work.
Right.
It's a good creative distraction to keep your mind like, it's all about timing, everything just, so it's good. I'm going to keep it going after the quarantine though, for sure.
Right. Okay. So with being trapped in the house and you guys are obviously hanging out and jobs have stopped, you were just telling me that you've worked on some stuff with G. Well, obviously you're living with him. So what have you guys been working on?
Fortunately, I've, been living with G, and he's had some, some press obligations and stuff that he has to do, because like the whole industry is like pretty much got turned on its end. Like how we approach work now is completely different. And there's been some opportunities for us to shoot some stuff here at his house. We just did a thing for Esquire that just came out.
Oh, that's dope.
Just a little like tour of the house. That's on their website, and I think it might be on their Instagram too. But We shot another little thing for Complex that hasn't come out yet. Just in his closet, Complex closets. And hopefully there's a couple more coming on the way. So
well, that's dope that you've been able to find opportunities.
People are having to find new ways to put out that content. You know, and fortunate enough, I've been here with, you know, another one of G's artists, �𝐋𝐋𝐿, and we shot some stuff for him too. We shot a visualizer. Just went out one night, shot a visualizer for his new music.
Oh, that's dope.
For his new single with G. So it's been good, bro.
Yeah, there's advantages to living with an artist. You know what I mean? For them and for you.
Yes, for real.
That's pretty convenient.
And yeah, we'll keep it going even after the quarantines. I mean, hopefully it's almost up now. So
shit, I know. We'll never know, bro.
Just gotta stay creative, bro. You gotta stay positive.
That's facts. All right, so I think something good that we could talk about on this would be the Super Bowl, because 2 years ago I went down there with EA. You were down there with Budweiser. They were both partnered on an event together, so we got to like bop around and have some fun.
Big collab.
Some big collabing right there. Some big FAA violations right there.
Yeah. Well, that's for another podcast.
That is for another podcast. We'll talk about that later. But how long have you worked with Budweiser? Have you done 2 years now with them at the Super Bowl?
Well, yeah, technically. So it's interesting because I think we may have talked about this before. Budweiser and Budlight use completely different entities for advertising and how they produce events. So really, the 2 years that I've seen you in, well, the first year, 2 years ago was in Atlanta.
Yeah, right.
And then this previous year in Miami, I was technically working, it's the Super Bowl, so there's all these parties involved, you know, so many like cooks in the kitchen, and it's like mainly my job is with Budlight, which is still an AB, you know, InBev company.
Right.
But but it was kind of funny because I was more or less like double dipping. I was doing some stuff for Budweiser and Budlight, or at least like I was down there at the same time they were.
Fire.
And that's what you got to do. So I was doing some events with Budweiser, some events with Budlight. People might think that they're the same company, but they're really not. And the advertising dollars are spent completely different. So yeah, I don't know. I definitely.
No, yeah. So, but you've worked with them the last 2 years.
Yeah, and it's been great. And now, you know, things are changing a little bit. So we'll see. And I've done other events for Budlight as well. Like they used to have a program, or they still do have a program, who basically Post Malone's the face of the dive bar tour.
Right.
So I've shot a bunch of those. I've shot G's, I shot John Mayer's dive bar tour. Was supposed to do one in Vegas with Gaga that got canceled, but she was the original person to start that program.
Wow, that's crazy.
And it was a hit.
Yeah. But you were so you did that prior to the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah.
And so that's kind of what.
I mean, so those smaller jobs that were like one-offs, basically, like their program called Dive Bar Tour, which led me to, you know, going down to the Super Bowl and working for a major brand.
Right, that's fire. So when you went down there, what are some of the objectives that they're giving you, and like what is your job? Because I think when we were down there the first year, you had a small team.
Well, you know, in a lot of these scenarios and situations, it's like you wish you could, you know, have the resources. Like I could have used a team of 5 people, you know, me, like, you know, my dream team would have been like 2 photographers, 2 videographers, and then 1 person doing all the intake and the uploads, and potentially another person remotely doing edits.
Right.
You know, but, you know, that's all like dream items. You know, it ended up just being me and my boy Eric Maldin, and, you know, we just ran it. You know,
Right.
I was shooting hybrid. I was shooting photo and video. He was shooting mostly video, and then he was doing the edits at night.
Right.
And I was like, well, this is taxing, but you know, it's, you know, we crushed it. So that's why they invited us down for this year in January.
Right. There's something about being able to put in the hours.
Yeah, you have to work with, like, you know, the odds were stacked against us. Clearly, you know, we could have used way more people. So I don't know. They're in the, you hear that?
What are you in the living room?
I'm on a Zoom meeting right now.
He's like chilling in the living room. People were just. It sounds like you're still like near and dear to the kitchen.
Yeah.
When you go down there, I guess what were, outside of limitations from people, it's kind of like, who's setting the standard of what your deliverables are? Because for this, it was a concert.
Yeah, it was kind of great because they gave us a lot of creative freedom. There wasn't like, you have to, you know, there's some things that we have to use, like we have to include, you know, this logo, like the EA logo, or the Super Bowl Music Festival logo, or some type of Budlight stuff, because it's 3 nights the event, so, and each night is pretty much sponsored by somebody else. So that changes from night to night how we approach, you know, a job, you know, and people should think about that. If you have a multiple day shoot, how to keep things like either consistent or keep, you know, change it as you need it, the assets,
right,
and make sure that's all done ahead of time.
Mm-hmm. And so for people who don't know, it's EA's festival, that one of the liquor, or
one
the
of the
alcohol
nights
companies
is the
EA's night, and then there's
EA
like 2
Bowl.
other nights. Yeah, so it's basically a 3-day festival with artists. I mean, Post Malone, there was like rock bands, there was like Migos and shit.
I mean, this year I did, who do we have this year? We had Guns N' Roses, it's Snoop. Last year we had, or the year before that was Aerosmith and Post, were some of the big ones. We had Khaled this year, and everybody, you know, the baby came out, got in the crowd, was crowd surfing. It was insane. You gotta show that photo.
Did you when you guys planned for year 2, you were able to have more people, right? Did you?
I was able. Yes, like I told them that I wanted to make the team a little bit bigger this year, and that meant I could bring one more person.
Shit.
You know, or obviously this is like a high-end client. They're working with high-end clientele, but still I need my team. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to lighten the workload a little bit on myself, take a step back and be more of the creative director of the project, rather than just be shooting and then back to edit, back to shooting, back to edit. Because we would have to deliver maybe 10-15 minutes after everyone's set.
Right.
And you're talking about some of the nights, like the hip hop night or whatever, usually they'll do one night of just like all rap. And I think that's the EA, like last year with the EA, and this year same.
Right.
But you could have had maybe 7 or 8 artists come out in an hour. So, you know, you're running back and forth between your little office and in the back of the arena, where you're cramped up with a bunch of other people doing the same thing, like a festival.
Trying to get your bangers.
Trying to get it off quick, so then they could send it to press, or whether they can. So the other teams that I work with are going to send it to like the artist directly. And
so let me ask you this.
So I brought Beth down with me.
That was your third person.
What's that?
Beth was your third person?
Yeah, she was my third shooter. She was absolutely killed it.
Yeah.
So it was me and her mostly doing photo, and then I was doing some photo and video again, but it's just diversifying the workload.
Right.
And that's great, and that's her bag anyways. You know, she knows the festival circuit so well, and a lot of these other artists. So
yeah,
it was great.
That with this type of, you know, quick turnaround what's some advice that you could give to creators who are out there shooting for events, whenever that happens again, to plan and strategize so that you can get what you need accomplished? Maybe like a suggestion for people who are a one-man band and then people that are working in teams.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, so many years I was on the road doing these edits or like on tour or doing a festival by myself. I didn't have the means or the clients really or the budget to put a team together, which is fun anyway. I mean, why not work with your friends and put them on too? But always staying organized and having a plan ahead of time. They don't just go into it blind. Like, a lot of these festivals now are so strict on their policies. So you have to figure out, like, okay, how am I going to navigate this? Like, maybe I should take a look at the map more. Maybe I should figure out, this person's set times, and maybe reach out to those artists ahead of time, even if you're not working for them directly, and be like, hey, I'm going to be there, be expecting photos from me. Even if they don't respond to you, it doesn't mean they didn't see it. Because it could just be a reminder, reaching out to the publicists, reaching out to, whoever. Everyone's information is out there. Even just sending an Instagram DM, make it personal.
Yeah.
And I think people are oftentimes very receptive to that.
Well, and you never know.
Just being organized.
Yeah, because you never know when, by you messaging someone in their camp and be like, hey, I'm going to be here, I'll be shooting already anyway. They may not have a shooter with them that day, and that becomes an opportunity.
It's a very valuable thing, for sure. Just thinking ahead, thinking on your toes. I mean, I remember just like, even if you didn't have like full access, like most 9 times out of 10 for you and me, have pretty much complete all access that we would want.
Right.
But, people that are coming up, those are the things they need to do early on to get to that point. Because the next time it comes around, they could just be like, oh, we'll give you a full pass or whatever.
Yeah. So what's some practices that you put into play as far as like maintaining relationships with these brands? Like, you've done 2 in a row. Obviously, you did something right in the first one that got you the invite for the second one. Who knows when the next Super Bowl is? But when you do work with these brands, what are some of the post steps that you take to try to secure future bags?
Just making sure that you keep in touch, and always go a little bit above and beyond. Not too much. Don't go overboard. Like, don't. In terms of like, because my number one thing that I do, not just for the major brands, but for, artists that I work with and shit, I always send too much, like always. And that's not always a good thing. I think a lot of people make that mistake, make them want more.
That's great.
It's one of my, I have mentors and stuff too, and friends, and every time I do a shoot, like that's just another aspect of digital photography and video, I guess. You might feel the same way. As like, we could easily go to a show and take maybe 2,000 photos easily in a night, and a festival, just multiply that by the artist. We're just clicking away. So I think slowing down and composing more, because that's the energy of a festival, of a live set, and what we do. There's always action going on, so I want to capture everything. And then you're spending more time in the post trying to figure out, okay, well, how many photos am I going to send? If they're not asking for send your 5 to 10 selects, we're just sending artists, fat Dropbox folders with like 50 or 60 images. And it took me a while to train myself, because we're so attached to like most of everything that we shoot, and you just gotta like take a step back. Even if you send it a little bit later, just like step away from the edit, come back, see it with fresh eyes, and be like, nah, I'm gonna take out these 15 to 20 images and just send it.
Right. I love that.
And then put those to the side. Don't delete them. Obviously, don't delete anything ever.
Right.
But put those to the side, and if they come back and say, hey, can you send us a few more, you still have that little pack to send them.
Right.
That
and you never
feel
know.
Good about it.
Yeah, it's the toughest part, I think, that everyone struggles with, is like, you like them all, maybe, but then also you get into your mindset of,
love them all.
What do
They're
they
like
love?
Your children.
well, what do they like? What are they going to want? Do they care about this shot? Will they even want that? But I'm going to send it anyway. And I learned that when I was touring with Schoolboy Q, and it'd always be like, all right, I'm going to send him. At first, I'm like, I just want them to know I'm good. So I'm like, just shit photos into the text messages. Like, yo, look. And then eventually I slowed it down to be like, all right, cool. I don't want to take 500 photos tonight. I want to take 300. Let's see what I can get in 300 or you know what I mean? Just try not to do burst mode as often and see if I can catch it in the moment. And I test myself there, but really finding a way to deliver your top like 10 pics that you take that night, or maybe it's video or whatever, but
absolutely.
It's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge. That's good advice though. When you know, for right now, strategizing, like you're coming off of this shit and luckily you've had work, what are some other things that you got in the can or the future that you're planning for?
You know what? I mean, every day is something, you know, something different. Like I said, obviously I've been cooking a lot, staying creative like that. You got to keep your mind, you know, going, and your creativity level high. And hopefully, you know, I've talked to some people in the industry that think that after all of this starts to slow down and is over, that we're going to see a big boom in people that need content and people that need, you know, services that we can provide and we're doing before. So it'll be interesting to see.
Right.
I don't necessarily have, you know, before not to touch too much or, you know, talk too much about like quarantine and stuff, but I had 2 major jobs that were canceled. And you hope that, you know, you can keep those relationships with people, because one was a existing client that was you know, a major brand that they had probably spent, you know, huge amounts of money to put on this event. We were actually going to fly to Turks and Caicos for a week and shoot.
Fucking
and that completely
ballin'.
got completely canned. They had flights pretty much set up, ready for everything. Everything got canceled. So you hope that they have, you know, that's why you got to form the relationships, because if something like this were to happen, you want them to come back to you afterwards, you know, and work with them. So
no, I love that.
You know, there's also on the flip side, I was supposed to do another job just days prior to that, before the lockdown. That was with an international artist who was in LA doing a press run. And the night before everything was like the mandatory lockdown, they emailed me at like 1 a.m. and said, so sorry, the artist has flown back home and we'll pick this up at a later date. So I was like, and that was a new person that I had never worked with before. So I was already in my mind thinking, okay, new artist, new perspective, like how do I make that work? So it's all that planning that goes into it behind. You know, it's easy enough just to follow someone around to do press interviews all day. It's the same, you know,
yeah,
thing
man.
all day.
I know.
You've been there. You've been there through those interviews.
Absolutely.
And they're painful.
Yes.
So I can only imagine how the artist feels. But it was still a new opportunity with a new artist.
No, that's great.
So that was kind of a bummer. So you hope, you know, to keep that connection and, you know, let them know that you're still around.
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing here is just to keep sharpening the tool of your relationships that you have or had, and let people know and aware that you're ready to tackle shit as soon as it's over with. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Doing
There's
that
so many
outreach.
resources out there. Like, now is the time to expand.
Right.
And, you know, it's good to take a step away too, and you know, bigger picture. Like, what do you want to do?
Facts, man.
You know?
Yeah, I feel that. What do you guys got planned today at the house?
I think we're gonna do some barbecue chicken. We have a chef homie that's gonna come over and
whip it up.
Bring some chicken. What else?
Play some catch.
I don't know. How is your Cinco de Mayo, man? Man, I cook better than catch. Come on.
No, I'm saying not catch LA. I'm talking about play some catch. You guys are like playing baseball. One day I called you. You're like, yeah, we're throwing the baseball around.
Yeah,
like,
throwing the baseball around. Been riding the bike. I was on the treadmill for a second, and then now I'm just.
Yeah, that's been the biggest struggle of all this shit is that. But now I'm doing this juice shit, man. I got juice for the next 5 days.
You got juice. I got kale salad. Let's go.
There we go. See, we healthy out here. All right, dog. Is there anything else? Anything else we need to tell people?
I don't know.
This is dope.
We want to, sign off on any note. Just telling people to, we'll get through this together. And if anybody out there is seeing this and they have any more questions or anything that's pressing or difficult for them to figure out through this time, definitely reach out. I know Ben will either put my Instagram or
absolutely,
and then you can find my email through that. Super always down to talk to people or help people in that way.
That's why you're a legend, big dog. That is why you are a legend. Well, I appreciate you. Y'all stay safe over there.
Thank you for having me, bro. It's always great to speak with you, for real.
Pull up as soon as the shit's over with.
Absolutely, bro. Miss you.
All right, later, player. Miss you too.
See you, man.
Boom. That is it for episode 184. A huge shout out to Dusty for coming on the show. Make sure to subscribe to Black with No Cream on whatever podcast platform you're listening to, and check out our other interviews that we dropped this week with Produced by Dre and Tony Yacenda. If you want a chance to ask any of our featured guest questions during the Q&A experience on the podcast, you can do that by going to jointhehomies.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. That shit helps us grow so much. You can also post a screenshot of this episode on your Instagram stories and let us know what some of your biggest takeaways from that episode are. We will repost the best ones. Make sure to tag at Black with No Cream on Instagram. Thank you so much for doing that. That's it for today. Enjoy the work week, people. Keep creating, and I'll see you in a few days, you bitch.